Today, we will analyze Israel's retaliation against Iran, codenamed Operation Day of Repentance, based upon the Jewish festival that takes place each year on 25th of October. Right now, in an unprecedented first, Republic TV had commenced its series of war game exercises with an analysis of trying to forecast what would Israel's retaliation against Iran look like, what form would it take, when would it actualize, and what targets. Iran had struck Israel on the 1st of October with about 181 ballistic missiles. Israel took a surprising 25 days to respond to this major attack, and this was quite obviously generating its share of confusion as to why this protracted delay. The delay was because of the tug of war between Washington and Tel Aviv over what targets would be struck, when they would be struck, how they would be struck, and what would be the scope and scale of the Israeli retaliation. It has now finally gone, Operation Day of Repentance, 25 days after the Israelis were struck. Now, as we all know, and I would just like to recall that on the 1st of October, Iran had struck Israel for the second time, and this time with about 181 ballistic missiles, liquid fuel Shahab ballistic missiles and the Fateh 2 hypersonic ballistic missiles, most of which got through. The world was surprised that Israel took 25 days to respond, but that delay was not really of Israel's making. It was more the pressure being applied by the Biden administration to curtail Israel's response so that there would not be any runaway escalation just weeks before the American election on the 5th of November. The United States has put an inordinate amount of pressure to make Israel desist from attacking Iranian nuclear facilities, attacking Iranian petrochemical target sets, which could have been devastating and would have led to assured retaliation, instant retaliation, I would think, and which could have set in motion an escalatory spiral of devastating consequences. Now, before I analyze this Israeli operation in detail, let me just also recount that Republic TV had commenced an unprecedented wargaming scenario generation exercise, and one of the first scenario generation exercises that we undertook was to wargame the likely Israeli retaliation against Iran, what form it would take, what targets it would strike, its timing, its scale and ferocity. We had also looked at what would be Iran's retaliation operations thereafter. It gives us a lot of professional satisfaction to state that most of our analysis and our prediction of outcomes or our forecast of what would happen has been proved spot on. So, I will quickly recap. We had discussed the routing operations for the Israeli strike on Iran. We had said, outlined the routes as the northern route via Iraq and Syria into Iran. We discussed the lower route via Jordan, Iraq into Iran, and then the third route, overland route via Saudi Arabia into Iran. And then, of course, that if none of these countries gave overflight permission to fly through their sovereign space, then Israel would have had no opportunity but to go all over the seas the Red Sea, then along the the Gulf of Oman, and then get into Saudi Arabia proper. Get into Iran proper. So the fact of the matter is that the Israelis have chosen the northern route with a deception route. I shall cover that a bit in detail as I go along. This is the shortest route possible, and this choice was forced virtually on Israel, because Israel has a critical shortcoming in this long range strikes: the number of air-to-air refuelers. Against Iran, it had only 7 Boeing 707 air-to-air refuelers, and that put a cap on how many aircraft packages it could send against Iran. Our initial estimate was that if you relied only on 7 Boeing 707 air-to-air refuelers, the strike packages would be around 50 plus, which would include, we had forecasted, the about 20 to 25 F-35 stealth aircraft providing combat air patrol, providing cover to these attacking aircraft. It would include 2 to 3 strike packages of 8 aircraft each, of either F-15 strike aircraft or F-16 strike aircraft. This is where we've had a bit of a surprise, because in the end Israel launched 100 aircraft into this attack, which attacked in 3 waves over 3 hours, and they struck 20 critical targets in Iran, most of which were primarily focused, first wave, on air defense radars, and they hit 4 into S-300 missile batteries. Then came, they launched the attacks on the Tehran Air Defense Headquarters, the nerve center. Not only was it hit with kinetic attacks, my presumption is it was also hit by cyber attacks to snarl up the entire air defense at the critical moment. And then it hit the missile production facilities, the solid fuel plants for the long range rockets, and the fuel. In the third wave, Israel hit the Madarasa and Khojar missile production facilities, complexes, and in which they specifically hit the plants for the rocket fuel mixers, as also the solid fuel plants for the long range rockets, especially the Fajr 2 type, which were the most dangerous for Israel, right? So this is the strike complexes that they have hit. It is being claimed by the Jerusalem Post that they also hit one research and development facility for the production of nuclear weapons. As we are all aware, Israel at long last, after 25 days, retaliated against the Iranian missile attack of the 1st of October, in which 181 ballistic missiles were fired against Israel. These were a mix, as I said, of the Shahab 3 liquid fuel missiles, but also a fair percentage of Fateh 2 hypersonic missiles. Now let it be known that no air defense as of today can stop or prevent a hypersonic missile from getting through, and the Fateh 2 missiles did get through and hit the Nevatim air base and the other air base in question. 2 of them hit the Mossad headquarters. One fell 100 meters away and the other fell about 600 meters away in Tel Aviv. We were anticipating initially an almost immediate Israeli response, but the Israeli response has taken 25 days to materialize. Why? Simple question. These 25 days have been spent in a tug of war between Washington and Tel Aviv. Washington was very keen for a ceasefire to calm down the Middle East before their crucial, critical elections, which are hanging by a thread. Quite obviously, the Americans were most unkeen to have a major flare up in the Middle East, which could send the price of oil skyrocketing, which could create fuel inflation based upon the skyrocketing prices of oil, and really almost torpedo the chances of Kamala Harris and the Democrats. So they have put considerable pressure. They have restrained Israel. There was a school of thought that Israel had not been restrained when it came to attacking Hamas and Hezbollah. They refused to go in for a ceasefire, and they had defied American threats for a ceasefire in situ, and they had gone right ahead and attacked. But please understand one very crucial distinction, right? These attacks on Hezbollah and Hamas are in the absolute backyard of Israel. They are extremely short range, just next door. As such, the Israeli Air Force needs no help from the United States to attack Lebanon or to attack Gaza Strip, etc. These are very, very proximity targets. They can be struck many times in the same day without any recourse or looking over the shoulder for any sort of American assistance. But Iran was an absolutely different cup of tea. Simple fact is, Iran is located almost 2,000 kilometers away, and to attack Iran in a meaningful manner, the Israelis had to rely upon United States support and full backing, right? Full backing in terms of provision of intelligence, satellite intelligence on the critical target sets that had to be selected. Intelligence support in terms of also electronic warfare support, perhaps even cyber support, right? And they above all needed air-to-air refueling support if they had to take any of the longer routings, right? So as it happened, the Americans prevailed. These elections were just too crucial for them, and for all that was said about the defiance by Netanyahu, he could not afford to alienate the Americans at such a crucial juncture when they were going for the elections. He had to take into consideration their apprehensions and their fears, and as we have seen, the United States has clearly constrained Israel from attacking any nuclear facilities, from attacking any petrochemical facilities, which would have ensured an absolutely immediate and out of control escalatory spiral which could have gone anywhere. A regional conflict was very much on the cards. It could even have gone more. So quite obviously the United States has put tremendous pressure. That is what explains the 25 days of back and forth negotiations and delays, but ultimately Israel has had to defer to the concerns of its main ally, the United States. No nuclear targets, no petrochemical targets have been hit. So what has been hit? So what has been hit then? The Israeli attack came with 100 aircraft in 3 waves, starting from 2 a.m. in the morning almost to 5 a.m. And in this is the death watch, the time when the defenders are at their, your sleep is the deepest, and this is the ideal time to attack and gain surprise, or to have addled or delayed responses from the defender. They hit 20 target sets, and I shall elaborate on these target sets. These are all military targets. Not even political targets were struck. Political leadership targets were also eschewed. In the first wave, they attacked 4 S-300 batteries and the air defense radars, along with the air defense headquarters of Iran in Tehran. The aim was to blast a way through the Iranian air defenses for the subsequent waves to go through. The second wave, in all probability, has targeted some IRGC, Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps headquarters, some airfields, right. The third wave, in all probability, targeted the missile complexes of Iran in Madrasa and Khojar, right, and they hit the heavy fuel mixers and they hit the solid rocket fuel complex for long range rockets. These are the ones that power the Fateh-2 hypersonic missiles, the ones that have proved most dangerous for Israel. So these these military targets were hit with great precision. 100 Israeli aircraft were over, Israeli airspace for 3 hours. And the fact is, not a single aircraft was shot down by the very formidable air defenses of of Iran, which include the Bawar 375, the Iranian locally manufactured equivalent of the Patriot missile with about 300 kilometers range. Then also they had the missiles of the S-300 class Russian missiles, 4 of which batteries have been hit, and the Iranians have admitted that 4 of their personnel, 2 officers and 2 I think other ranks, have been killed in these airstrikes. Not a very great number, but quite obviously they are trying to hide some level of damage or the extent of level of damage to their air defense radars and to their command and control platforms, as also the missile launchers. We are not aware of that because the battle damage assessments as of now are not clear on that aspect. They definitely have hit the missile production facilities, the heavy fuel mixers and the solid fuel for long range rockets. These have been definitely hit, and there is commercial satellite imagery which has shown the pictures of these in 2021 and now, and definitely there is damage which can be perceived on these satellite imagery, right. What was the routing that they took? The routing that they have taken in all probability is over Jordan, Syria, Iraq. Don't forget that the last number of days they have been attacking the air defense facilities in Syria and in Iraq against the Shiite militias which had been deployed forward there for early warning of any such attack by Iran. They have hit them, and they have used deception routing in terms of a large number of drones to deceive the main direction of the attack, and possibly the drones have been made to fly over Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia has been expressing great anger and frustration that without its permission its airspace has been violated by the drones, but the simple fact is that a large number of these drones were also targeted. They drew away the fire of the Iranian air surface to air missiles of the Patriot class and Bawar missiles, which mostly expended their ammunition onto these drones that were coming over Saudi Arabia in that surprise move kind of a thing. These successive waves of attack have hit targets in Tehran. They have hit targets in the southwestern, the northwestern portion of Iran along the coast. They have especially the surface to air missile batteries, and of course the missile production sites inland, which I have mentioned at Khojar and Madrasa. So this has been the broad pattern of attack on the Iranian target sets, At this stage, I would like to do a professional analysis. At this stage, I would like to pause to take a flashback. In an unprecedented first, Republic TV had carried out an analysis of had carried out. At this stage, I would just like to pause a bit and take a look back. In an unprecedented first, Republic TV had carried out a war game exercise, a scenario generation exercise for the first time on Indian television, of trying to analyze and forecast what would the Israeli counter-strike look like, what would be the force composition, what would be the routing options, what would be the targets that would be attacked, and what would be the time windows in which this attack would be launched. So it is a matter of considerable professional satisfaction that most of our analysis was spot on, most of our forecasts have been validated by actually what has happened on the ground. So let me take a quick look. We had taken a look first at the targeting patterns, and we had identified these as nuclear sites and facilities, number one. Number two, the petrochemical facilities, especially Bandar Abbas, the Kharg Island, and of course the Chabahar terminal that we have helped to create, oil export terminals. And number three, we had said there would be the military targets. We had also forecasted that due to American pressure that Israel could not ignore, because in any attack on Iran, considering the technical difficulties involved in terms of air-to-air refueling, in terms of satellite intelligence support, electronic warfare support, possibly even cyber warfare support, it did need American assistance. This was not like attacking Hezbollah in Lebanon and attacking Hamas in Gaza. For this long-range strikes, Israel could not do without American support. So all fancy notions that Israel had defied America in terms of not attacking Hezbollah, in terms of going in for a ceasefire with Hamas, etc. They could do that and get away with it because they needed no American support to attack targets in Lebanon or in Gaza. They could attack them many times in the same day, right? Because of there hardly any distance involved. But Iran is a different cup of tea, 2,000 kilometers, right? And therefore we had calculated, and this is where we've had some reason to correct ourselves. We had calculated that given the fact that if America did not lend active support to the attack on Israel, the attack of Israel onto Iran, then Israel had a limitation that it has just 707 Boeing aircraft as refuelers. And it was our anticipation that these 7 Boeing aircraft refuelers, if we took their capacity into account, the maximum strike package that Israel could muster up would be about 55 plus aircraft, which would include the AWACS, the SEAD, suppression of enemy air defense aircraft, which would include the refuelers, which would include some about 20 or more F-35 stealth aircraft flying combat air patrol, helping to suppress enemy air defenses, taking care of any Iranian aircraft that rose to challenge the attackers, and about 2 to 3 strike packages of about 8 F-15 or F-16 strike aircraft each with 2 bunker buster bombs, right? This was what our estimate was, that it would come like, what could be afforded given the calculation of the number of refueler aircrafts that Israel had intrinsic, integral to its force structure, not relying on the Americans.